Nick, you were just saying there's kind of a difference between what's going on premise and off premise, and I mean I direct this at you, but it's really for anybody. What do you make of that difference, and what do you think is creating that?
I think it's just because it's such a large market. I mean, you can look at a lot of markets as one individual place where the trends and the themes are kind of consistent throughout. But LA is a very diverse area. It's very spread out. We have a massive population, and one neighborhood is a completely different market than another. So it really depends. Like, I mean, for example, we have a huge Hispanic population, which I think everyone is aware hasn't really latched on to craft beer yet. They're still drinking imports and pilsners, and there's that is a huge portion of our population, which is why when you look at off-premise data, only it's 4% of all of the beers sold is craft, but we're the second largest craft market in terms of volume in the country. So it's just the fact that we have such a large consumer base that there's still so many to kind of to bring into craft and to get to trade up. But it's so diverse and it's so spread out. Whereas in the on-premise, you have any new bar that opens for the most part in your affluent areas is going with the craft-centric theme. And then even, we were talking earlier, even a bar that is typically your average sports bar is still going to have, some craft beers on tap. So you're seeing it more and more in the on-premise.
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed is that it's just a sheer numbers game too. I mean, the off-premise business in Los Angeles, there's probably have a third of the supermarkets that they do. There's very little supermarket chain business. The liquor stores are very small, and I think for a distributor side of it, and something that we need to work on and something that we do and develop these other markets is to expand these liquor stores and maybe cut back on the domestic space. It's very developed and develop more craft space from these liquor stores. In LA, when you go into a liquor store, there's a lot of, you still have that ethnic version with the malt liquors are in there and the very heavy domestic SKUs. I think it's up to us as a distributor to grow this craft beer is to cut back on that space and make there a more relevant craft selection in a lot of these liquor stores, which are a lot smaller as well. So I think we can definitely improve that trend as a distributor by changing the way some of these liquor stores look and the look in these stores. Yeah.
Anything or go on?
For off sale versus on sale, is that?
Yeah.
I can only, honestly, I can really speak to the on sale because that's what I deal with. And I don't go to much off sale because I can buy my own beer and bring it home. So it doesn't make. But I will say this: I've seen a huge change in the on sale, which is, it used to be that you go to restaurants or beer bars and it was okay, it was acceptable to be having the big three, the BMCs, and some Corona or something. You go to a nice steakhouse and $1 million wine selection and $50 steaks, and then you just drop off and go into BMCs like Bud Miller Coors when you go into, which I always thought was bizarre. But now it's like wherever I go, and obviously I'm biased because I like craft beer, but there's always at least one handle. There's one handle, and usually it's not even what you're thinking. It's not, and by no means is the bash anyway, because these guys are great, but it's not Sierra Nevada or Anchor or the usual suspects. It's, Craftsman, it's Eagle Rock, it's something local, which is, it's Angel City. It's something that you weren't expecting, but we should be expecting. We make beer in Los Angeles, why are we not selling it at the places? But I think in terms of that, you're seeing a lot of growth on the on sale, which I don't know the numbers, but I don't know if it's reflecting that correctly, because the on sale, you are seeing a lot of change and a lot of movement.
There's a saying in the beer business that distribution starts in the on-premise. So if that's the case, the off-premise is really going to start doing a lot better, because that's where we've always said for years that that's where the business comes from. People are in those bars sampling those beers, and then they go looking for them in the liquor stores, and that's where we need to do a better job to make sure those beers are in those liquor stores. So,
yeah, I think that kind of speaks to 2 points really, and it's that we need strong lead local brands. Mm-hmm. If you look at any of the top 25 craft markets in the country, at least one of their top 5 craft brands is a local brand. At least 2 of the top 10 are lead local brands. If you look at LA, we still technically, Hangar 24 would be the only one that you're going to find in the top 10, and they're not in LA, but they're classified close enough as local. But we just don't have that established off-premise presence for the lead local craft brands, because so many are on-premise brands. And we need to get more space dedicated in the off-premise to the lead local. It's something that people can latch onto and identify with as LA beer. And I think the second point that I wanted to make off of that is the fact that it's such a transplant city. Outside of our indigenous population, there's so many transplants that don't identify with local brands because they're not from here. And so we need to find, be more in their faces and get them to identify. I mean, they're all Lakers fans now. Why can't they be local craft beer fans?
And so, Joe, from a distributor's point of view, how do you, or how can you help to carve out that necessary shelf space for off-premise?
It just by, like I said, getting the data. We're not going to see a whole lot of raw data as of yet because it's so new, but you have to take the data from other areas, from different territories, different parts of the counties, different areas, and show these consumers that, you really don't need, or you show these liquor stores, you really don't need a whole 2 doors of Bud or Miller, Bud, Miller, Coors, You just don't need, there just doesn't warrant that nowadays, and to cut back on that space and get a door of craft beers. And you're gonna see that, downtown LA for a long time wasn't even a destination. I think one of the things that they've done very good here is that they've created downtown LA at a point where people are going now to visit, to party, to go out at night. I mean, there were years ago, you'd come down here, I'd go to a Dodger game, I remember, and come downtown, and you could shoot a cannon off. There would be nobody down here. But now there's people coming to the town, to these bars in the Hollywood area and all these areas. And I think that's what's going to get that beer out there. And cutting back, there's a lot of space that we can go in there and show them some data and sales from other areas and brands that are going to be strong and cut back on that domestic space. And I think that's what we need to do. And I think when you talk about, there's folks in Golden Road here, I think they've done that, but they need to, Golden Road's, only 3 years old. We need to piggyback on that and grow that space as well and to help that grow.
So what has sort of enabled craft hotbeds, places like Portland and San Diego, to develop the way they have that might be still missing in LA, that has left this market underdeveloped, if you want to call it that, which I know we have differing opinions on?
Yeah,
It's a hot button word.
I'm going to just jump in and say, you got to look at the history of Los Angeles. And until less than 5 years ago, there was not a brewery in LA proper. I think that you're in cities like San Diego and Portland and Denver, they were really pushed through local breweries building. And these breweries, a lot of them are in their 20s and the teens and 20s right now, and they've been established for a long time. And Los Angeles, and I don't know, don't quote me on the number, but it's got to be more than 20 new either active breweries or new breweries in 5 years, less than 5 years. That's crazy. I mean, I think that underdeveloped is definitely not the right word to use, because I feel like it's changed dramatically. Look, I've only been here since 2007 in terms of owning bars and craft beer bars, and the difference that I've seen is, it's even hard to think about, like, how much it's changed. But I think that the growth of the breweries and them really putting a stamp on the city is what's really going to establish this as a beer city, which it should be. I mean, in pure volume of the number of breweries, I think that we outnumber many of the established beer cities. And, I think it's just a matter of time.
So do you see that as like a label that the city is in active pursuit of, like a beer city, as it were?
I don't think we are. I mean, LA, I hate to say it in front of this audience, but I think it will always be a cocktail town. It just will. It's just,
Image conscious.
Yeah, look, you just got a movie, you're on the red carpet. Are you going to bring a 6-pack or pop a ball of champagne or have like it's never going to be that, but I don't think we need to be that. I think that the pure volume alone, we can have a great beer culture here without being a beer city in that way.
I think the key goes back to a point that I was making earlier, is just the fact that it's such a large geographic space. And trying to drive local brands, and you look at Portland, and you look at Seattle, and you look at San Francisco, and even San Diego. They're not that big of cities. The Pacific Northwest cities, San Francisco, they're very condensed. Everybody's on top of each other, and they have all of those local brands right there on top of each other. Whereas LA is spread out, and one neighborhood's different than another, and they're not crossing over a lot. People from the west side aren't going into the other side of the 405. So you need more and more breweries to continue to develop. You need local breweries driving local neighborhoods and bringing them all into craft in different ways, and then it will all start to cross over, and you'll see craft really, really grow in LA as a whole.
I mean, the opportunity is there. The opportunity is huge. I think, one of the terms, for lack of a better word, is setting the table, and I think it all goes back to what, we're all talking about. We need, once we set that table and get these, and, I think there's going to be craft in every account. That's where we need to be, and that's what you see. And once you do that, it moves fast. I was in San Diego, and that market share for craft, I mean, year after year after year over the last 5 years, just rocket. I mean, it doubles almost every time. And it's just by setting the table and having these folks see it and seeing it out there on a regular basis. Ryan is all his bars are major craft bars, but you're going to other bars and other locations where you would never see a craft beer in there. I mean, it would be a domestic or a European import. Now, almost every bar they're going to have some type of craft beer in there, and that's what that's the buzz. That's what people want to try, and I think that is going to help the LA market even grow in share, definitely.
So how's the quality of some of these newer local brands?
Yeah, I mean, there's some good stuff happening, but it always takes a little while for everything to get going. And, there hasn't been something that's just we don't have our Alpine or Russian River just yet. But I think that there's a lot of good beers starting to come out of LA, and it's just a matter of time before we're going to have like these marquee kind of breweries coming from Los Angeles. We're not there yet, but it's so new. And I mean, I'm not trying to sound like down on it, but less than 5 years, as I said before. There's a lot of time to grow, and it takes a little time to dial things in and get your stuff together, and success isn't overnight always. So I think there's some good beer, but there's a lot of room to grow.
I think you're right. We don't have that brewery yet that has that kind of reputation, and that I have to go there, and I have to. We don't have that destination brewery yet, and LA is not a destination brewery location yet. But to speak to quality, I think that the breweries are making higher quality beer than most of the beer that's being consumed in LA.
That's fair.
So, if nothing else, I mean, we're making solid beers. The breweries are making good beers.
These breweries are not going to be successful. They're not making good product.
Right.
The local breweries here they're making good product. They need help. They need help from the outside. I think bringing some of these small brands from San Diego are going to help just create that appetite and help. Like Ryan said, there's not enough base of local craft brewers to sustain the population. I think we bring up some of these brands from San Diego, these small craft brewers, give the people, it offers more variety, gets more attention, more excitement, but the beers are good beers. I mean, you're not going to be successful if you're not making good product, and I think, the future is bright. There's so much, like you said, opportunity to move to LA. So.
I think there's a chance for LA to develop an identity too. Like San Diego's the IPA town. We could very well be. I mean, LA loves pilsners. Mm-hmm. This could be a craft pilsner town, or a light lager, or a lighter craft beer town. And I think that's step one, is getting people to trade up and to switch to craft beer without shocking themselves too much. And I think that's Ryan had mentioned that earlier as well. And I think there's an opportunity to create some kind of unifying identity for LA craft brewers.
And I think you're right on with the craft pilsner. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that would scoff at the craft pilsner, but I mean, I think it's excellent, and I think that for me personally at my bars, there's nothing I move faster than a craft pilsner. And I personally, that's what I drink, and I look for, I look for a good quality Pilsner, and I think it fits the climate here. So I think that you're right. I think that you're seeing that too, that there's a lot of breweries starting to understand that like there is a place in this world for the fizzy yellow beer that is actually made correctly and well and has a lot of flavor to it. And I know from where I'm sitting, it moves. It does really well.
So do you think as the market continues to develop that the appetite will trend more towards what's kind of going on elsewhere, towards more hoppy styles?
I think that the American palate always is going to have a hoppy style. I mean, if you go to Europe and you try, it's always going to be malty, and that's just ingrained, especially living on the West Coast. It's always going to be hoppy. But I think because of the weather here and just because of when we started really starting breweries here and our beer culture, we're much more ahead of the game on the session trend that's starting to happen, and I think that's really what LA beer is starting to be.
That's when LA kind of came into the game, was during these sessionable beers, and definitely I've seen that the wheat beers and are definitely have bigger trend than we're not setting the world on fire with big IPAs in LA right now, but they're well open to different crafty, like for instance a peanut butter stout or something palatable that they can grip as their own and they can try it. They think it's sessionable. That's what the folks in LA are gravitating to, and there's going to be definitely, I just think sooner or later they'll be at they'll get, I don't know if they're told to be a total hophead, but they're going to be drinking IPAs. There's no doubt about it. Yeah. They graduate as time goes on. You start out as in an entry level with these wheat beers and these Pilsner beers, and as time goes on, you just word of mouth, and you're trying hoppier beers.
So, and kind of shifting gears, but we've seen in other markets the rotating handles is kind of a big problem. So how is that as an issue here in LA?
I guess it depends on who you're talking to if it's a problem. I think it's a great thing, especially smaller suppliers. I've heard that it's great because it's like, look, we can't produce enough beer. We want you to carry it. We can't give you steady handles. Great. Just we'll throw you in the mix. We'll move through. That's why brewers are doing different beers and one-offs and interesting stuff. I mean, there's not consistent handles of these. I mean, you can't. I can talk for myself. Brian from Blue Palms over here, another person that's been doing that since we started, and now we're really rotating. And I think it's a great thing. I think it gives education. It gives something exciting to beer. It's bringing it back. It brings people to come and like, what's new? What's out there? What's the new offering? And it's bringing excitement back. So I love rotating. Once again, I'm own bars, and I like the limited edition stuff. So
I think it's incredibly necessary to growing craft and to exposing people to more beers, and it's a great educational thing. What scares me and what I don't like is when every new bar decides that that's going to be their theme, because there's bars where it makes sense. Olive Ryan's bars, Blue Palm, those places are places where, okay, it makes sense, and you're educating people on new brands, you're getting the best beers, you're providing beers that a lot of places can't get. But when you have places rotating just to rotate, it doesn't make a lot of sense, and it's one of the biggest challenges towards building a small brand, when you can't get that permanent distribution and that permanent visibility.
Yeah, I mean, for distributorship, it's probably kind of a nightmare for inventory-wise and things like that. But for us, having small brands in our market, taking on small brands and wanting to distribute them in LA, it's been very helpful. I mean, it gives the opportunity for a small craft brewer to get into a bar like Ryan's and have immediate exposure, which is huge for them, and that, because that's what we have to offer to these customers, and it's new. They want to try it, they want to buy it, but it is it is literally rotating. We're not talking a monthly rotation, we're not talking a weekly rotation, we're talking a daily rotation on some of these brands. And it's very difficult to manage, but that's what we do, and that's what we're able to do, with our distributorship network. We're able to manage that inventory and move that inventory around to where we need it and what's hot and where we need it. So
I think in a weird way, I was thinking about, but it's keeping people honest a little bit. Maybe breweries a little bit honest.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? that beer sells, I'm going to bring it back. But if it doesn't, you know what? You come back and tell me why this batch is so much better and what flaw you had there, and you retworked your formula or whatever it is. I mean, it's the ability to really get feedback right away and know what's good and if someone needs to work on something. So I love, once again, the rotating handle. So.
And we had been talking a little bit earlier about differentiation, sort of what is kind of stifling that. You had mentioned the tap, like the kind of uniform tap handles. So I guess on that level, what are some of the things you're seeing that are either helping that or kind of going against that?
I brought that up because, you see a lot of accounts and a lot of craft bars where they're just having all the same tap handles, where they might be all black handle across the bar. And I think it kind of hurts the recognition of some of these smaller brands, because in a lot of cases, for me, I think, I kind of tie the tap handle into the brand I'm drinking, right? And, you look on the board, that board, you pick your beer, but I don't know. I think the visual for some of these small breweries, I see a few folks shaking their heads. I don't know, but for me, I think it's just some type of recognition for that brand, and I just think that might help, grow that craft business someplace.
And we're talking about the handles being blacked out. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll say, I mean, I agree. I love handles. Handles are so cool, but they're just, they don't. If you're rotating it, it gets in the way, and I have boxes full of handles, and it's like the poor brewery that has to give me all these handles that, like, I don't know if I'm even going to, so we started doing it some of our places. One of our places we still have handles, but we do little, like, laminated plaques, and we have chalkboards at some, and it's still getting the name across out there, and you're pushing it. Yes, you don't have the handle, which is unfortunate because they're great, but in the same sense, it's like, what good does that handle that costs $15 to $20 to the brewer what does it do for them if it's sitting in a box in the back of my closet? It does nothing, And then with rotation, it just kind of, I get for the steady handle places, but they shouldn't have a blacked out. If it's rotating, it's an inconvenience for us.
Again, for me, it just goes back to building a brand. Like, there's so much tied into the visual of a tap handle. It's the same as when you go to a store and you recognize a six-pack. You're going to build a brand that way by recognition and by that visual stimulation. And when you have the handles blacked out, like, that's great having the chalkboard, and at least the name, as long as the names are on a menu or on the chalkboard, that's fantastic. But you may remember a handle more than you remember a name. So I think it's way more important to have that visual piece correlated with it.
I'm probably speaking more from a distributor side. You're in the bar. Once the handle's in the bar, and that bartender, the customer's reading it off the board. But as far as me wanting to take that brand to another bar or growing that brand and trying to get some legs for that brand in an area, that helps. It really does to get some recognition between the handle and what that beer actually is. The guy remembers it from the handle.
It's like,
not so much reading it from them.
Imagine if you went to a grocery store and they had just all black six-packs and a list of beers.
Right.
Yeah, but in the same
I'd go buy wine.
In the same sentence, like if you went to the grocery store and they pulled the labels off and threw it in the back, and they're like, well, because we keep on changing these beers over and over. It's just you're paying for labels that we're not even going to use.
Right.
So,
we'll do a fair job of collecting the handles.
That's really what it comes
down to. Because they're getting pretty expensive nowadays.
They look really nice at my house. I'd appreciate
you
you
do a
getting
fair job of collecting them when you're not using them.
So we have time for about one more question. So I guess we can just go down the line with this one. What things need to happen now in LA for I guess the market to continue to grow and become just a better city for craft beer?
I'll start. I think we're doing it right. I think everything's kind of falling into place. It just keep on going where we're going. I think everything is moving in the right direction. The change from, as I said, from 2007 to here, and that's just a short space of time. I'm definitely not the person that started beer bars in Los Angeles, and the change that I've seen, I just can't imagine what it's going to be like in 5 years from now. So it sounds, I hope it doesn't sound like a cop-out, but I really just think that as a whole, it's going in the right direction.
Yeah, I think, I kind of already addressed what I think the number one thing is, and it's just more local breweries driving their local neighborhoods. I think, people like Angel City, like Golden Road, like, all the breweries in the South Bay, and, we have a lot of options, and we need more, and we need to just build up LA as a whole and then have that crossover start to happen. Just more and more exposure. That's the best thing that we can do, is just be visible and be in people's faces and make craft available.
The appetite's there. It's going to grow. We just need to expand on the distribution, get the brands in more outlets, move to more generic or mainstream bars and restaurants, liquor store space like we talked about, off-premise, growing that space. But the appetite's there. That LA has become more and more of a destination, and that's what's going to grow the craft beer in LA. It's just having more and more people coming to LA as a destination and actually drinking in LA and doing all the right things. I think we just need to get all the brands out there as many places as we can, and it'll continue to grow, definitely.
Awesome. Joe, Nick, and Ryan, thank you guys for coming out.
Great, thank you.
Cheers,
Thank
thank
you for the opportunity.
How hot is your beer now? It's like 78 degrees.
Yeah, so we have like a 15-minute break to go mingle and fill up your glasses. So we'll reconvene here in 15 minutes.
Hey, man.